Hi, this is Ed Breniger. We are living in a time of transition, and to understand what transition means, we need to recognize that the things that we are experiencing today didn't just happen out of thin air. That they are the product of things that were taking place, decisions and actions taking place in the past that have an effect upon today. And the way we respond to those decisions and actions from the past, the way we respond today to them, will have an impact upon where the world is in the future. So, this line of transition we are a part of, and we are more aware of this transition than I think we have ever been for a variety of reasons. And it's touching us psychologically, physically, emotionally, spiritually, socially, organizationally, and it's doing it so on a global scale at the local level. So what are we to do with this? What are we to do with this idea that we're in the midst of a great period of change? And how are we to respond to this in a positive, constructive, hopeful way? Well, I think that the way we should look at this is that we need to be persons who have a purpose for impact. I'm not suggesting we just need some kind of purpose, some kind of idea that gives us a warm sense of comfort in saying, well, my purpose is to do one thing, this certain thing. My purpose is to sell insurance, or my purpose is to play soccer, or my purpose is something else. No, I think it's important for us to not just have a purpose, which is kind of a general idea that our lives need to be purposeful. No, I think it's important that this idea of purpose needs to be focused upon impact. I see impact as a change that makes a difference that matters. I want you to think about this for the next few minutes. What is it that you do on a regular basis which makes a difference that matters to someone else? Not to you, but to someone else. Maybe it has to do with your being a parent. Or maybe it has something to do with you being the manager in a business. Or maybe it has something to do with you being a school teacher, or a minister, or a physician, or a lawyer. Whatever it may be, the role that you are playing in your world is not simply one that you are administrating, but it's one that you're living out as a purpose for something. And I am suggesting that you begin to think in terms of making your purpose one for impact, that you begin to define your life not by what's important at some internal level, but rather what your life means in terms of what you're wanting to change. Think about this for a minute. If you were given a check, a blank check, and say you could have all the money in the world, what is it that you would change? And this change would be permanent, and it would outlast you and everyone else who will ever live again. What is it, that one change that you would like to see happen? Well, for me, what I'd like to see happen is for people to discover their purpose for impact. And I would like to see people taking personal initiative to create that impact. I'd like to see local communities filled with people who are taking initiative to create impact for their community. That's my purpose for impact. And my purpose for impact even goes further in that I have a goal in mind. Now, it's an absurd goal, a ridiculous goal. It's a goal that is far beyond anything that I can do alone. My goal is to see 1% of the world's population taking personal initiative to create impact in their local communities. We're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of 750 to 800 million people becoming persons of impact. Now think about that. That's a 10% goal. If even 1% of that 10% goal, 75 to 80 million people in the world were all of a sudden to become persons of impact, the world would change. Everything would be different overnight. All it takes is someone to say, I'm going to make a decision to do this one thing because I want to see it changed. So to understand how being a person of impact actually functions, let me describe the parts to this so that you can understand how you can go through the transition that is happening to you right now. And when you get into your future, you can look back and say, so this is how I became a legitimate person of impact. First of all, there has to be something which matters to you. Let's call these values, but that value is something which motivates you, which orients your focus, which says this is important as opposed to some other word or idea. But this is something that you have chosen and you're willing to commit your life to this idea. In fact, it becomes a non-negotiable idea for you, so that if you are asked to do something that violates that idea, violates that value, you say, I will not do that. You will say no. Now, I'm not talking about this idea as something like an ideology, which causes you to be blindly loyal to an idea or some interpretation of an idea. That is not what I'm talking about. Now, what I'm talking about is having a value that defines who you are, that this is your identity, and you're going to live your life to see that idea represented in how you live, not simply in how you think or how you speak. And so it's important for your values to be something that has a deep resonance of truth within yourself, that it rises out of not only your own study, but out of your own experience. For me, my core value, I have one core value, and that is honor. And I came to have this sense of importance to the word honor because of people that I had encountered as a young person, both in high school and then in my young adult years. I was touched by people whose lives were ones of dignity and respect and trust and gratitude, and the way they responded to me or acted towards me was that of honoring me as a person that they respected and trusted and thanked. So honor is the core value. And so I will do the best that I can. I mean, I will not always be perfect in this, but it's my intention to be perfect, to be a person of honor in my relationships with people. So you take something like that and you orient your life around that. So you take your values and they translate into how you're going to relate to people. And then you also, it gets translated into what your purpose is. So my purpose is to treat people with honor so that they may become persons of impact. I was told once that because I believed in them, they can believe in themselves. And I believe that that is true, that by having someone who says, I believe in you, that we may find within ourselves that sense of values and that sense of purpose, which says, I can be a person of impact. And that's what I hope that you might find. So when we talk about impact, what we're talking about is simply, what is the change you want to create? And how can you spend your each and every day working towards that change? And that change could be any number of those things. And there is no, how shall I say it, external measurement of that change, because it is your decision. It is your change that you want to create. Now, granted, the change will have a benefit, and then people can look at that change. They can look at the change and say, well, this has worked and is that not work? But because this is your commitment, this is your sense of purpose, this is your sense of the impact you want to have, it is something which is only for you to appreciate and to treasure and to nurture and nourish. And so we take the personal initiative as the action to create the impact. And the impact needs to be something where we can see a difference being made. So if you were to become a person of impact, it begins simply by doing something which allows you to have a difference in someone's life, or some way at work, or some thing that you do within your community. It's some action you're going to take that will benefit the community. And the idea is that it's all not on your shoulders, it's on all of our shoulders. All of us are responsible for this. Is how we actually live the very best human life that we have, is to be our best selves by taking responsibility for that sense of purpose that is down within us and translating that into actions and initiatives and organizations, projects and programs which are reflective of this sense of values and this sense of purpose and the commitment we have to the impact we want to create. So if you're in a position of leadership, meaning you're in an organization where you have a position where you're responsible for people under you, then if you were to take this idea to them and say, I would like us to reorganize how we relate to one another so that we can focus on how we as a team can be a team of purpose for impact. And so what is the impact that we as a team want to have? Who do we want to benefit? Who do we want to impact? How do we want to impact them? What is that going to look like to our customers? What is that going to look like to each other? This is how we begin to talk about impact as something that's real and something that's doable, as something that's achievable. And then we can look back as we get into the future, and we're looking back at the present, today's present, which is now the past, and we can say, look, this is how we began to be a person of impact, persons of impact, or a organization of impact. So this is a way to reorient ourselves as we're in the midst of all this transition. And when we reorient ourselves away from being kind of assaulted by all this information coming to us, which is asking us to think and believe and feel in a certain way, by taking charge of understanding what our values are, and by taking charge of defining what our purpose for impact is, all of a sudden we begin to have a way of understanding what's coming at us. We'll have perspective, and we'll have a context for saying, that's very good. I will be glad to do that. No, that's not good for me. And so we begin to be able to say no when it's the right way to say no. And we're saying no because we're actually saying yes to our values and our sense of purpose for impact. So this is what we can do together as individuals in our communities to create a better world and to bring about the changes that I think we all would like to see happen. So I wish you well. You can find me at edbrenniger.com. and let me know what you think. And you can also find books that I've written at amazon.com/author/Ed Rediger. And I look forward to hearing from you and seeing you soon. And I thank you for listening and watching. Bye-bye.